The orbital chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tension. 12 different species of aliens sat around a vast circular table, their forms as diverse as the stars that dotted the black void visible through the transparent dome above them. Some had multiple limbs, others possessed translucent skin revealing complex internal systems, and a few existed partially in forms of energy rather than matter. Elder Tahoe, a tall being with silvery skin that reflected the chamber's light, stood at the center. His 4 arms moved in fluid gestures as he controlled the holographic display. Honored Council, our observation of Star System 7429b has yielded unexpected results, he began. The third planet, locally called Earth, contains intelligent life that defies our understanding of psychological resilience. The hologram shifted to show scenes from Earth, a coastal city ravaged by tsunami waves, people pulling survivors from wreckage, a war-torn landscape where children played soccer amid bombed buildings, hospital workers laughing together after a 20-hour shift during a pandemic. They survived floods, earthquakes, and wars, Tahoe explained, hovering over the central projection. Yet they rebuild, they joke, they continue. Most perplexing. Juwu, the Council's chief xenobiologist, moved forward. Her form was more humanoid than most Council members, though her skin held a blue tint and her eyes were large, taking in more light spectrum than human eyes could perceive. I have studied their neural activity for 37 cycles, she said. Her voice was melodic, rising and falling in patterns that translated her thoughts more precisely than words alone. Humans process trauma unlike any species we have encountered. Their neural pathways adapt to normalize extreme conditions within days. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Councillor Mina, whose segmented exoskeleton clicked softly as she moved, leaned forward. Dangerous, she hissed, mandibles flexing with concern. A species this adaptable could threaten galactic stability. They survive conditions that would destroy societies with 10 times their technological advancement. The hologram shifted to display more images. Humans smiling despite grievous injuries. Communities rebuilding after disasters. People making jokes in dire situations. Or become valuable allies, countered Tahoe, his silver skin pulsing with emotion. We have observed 17 Level 4 extinction events on their planet. They survived each one, not through advanced technology, but through what they call hope and determination. Concepts our translators struggle to fully capture. Councillor Dury, whose gaseous form swirled inside a containment field, emitted a series of light pulses that the chamber systems translated. How do they maintain social cohesion through such trauma? Our predictive models suggest their society should have collapsed centuries ago. Juwu manipulated the display to show human brain scans. Their brains contain unique structures that process fear differently than most sentient species. They acknowledge danger but can compartmentalize it, continuing to function despite awareness of threats. The council chamber filled with debate. Some members argued for quarantine protocols, suggesting a species with such resilience might one day threaten the galactic order. Others saw potential in human adaptability, suggesting careful observation and possible alliance. Their technological development accelerates, noted Councillor Kwan, whose crystalline form sparkled as he spoke. They have primitive space travel capabilities and will discover our presence within decades. We must decide our approach before they find us unprepared. Elder Tahoe changed the display again, showing recent data from a severe earthquake on Earth's Pacific coast. The footage showed a small human child, perhaps 7 years old, covered in dust and blood. She had pulled her younger brother from collapsed building ruins. Despite her own injuries, she was now helping others, offering water and speaking words of comfort to adults twice her size. The council chamber fell silent. They call this compassion, Juwu explained quietly. Even their youngest members display remarkable psychological resilience combined with care for others. It transcends mere survival instinct. Councillor Muna's mandibles clicked rapidly. This makes them more dangerous, not less. A species that combines such mental fortitude with emotional connection could spread rapidly throughout the galaxy. Or they could teach us, countered Juwu. Our species retreated to the stars to avoid planetary disasters. Humans faced them head-on. There is something to learn here. Elder Teho looked around the chamber. I have observed humans for 200 cycles. They are violent, yes. Chaotic, certainly. But they possess something rare in our experience. They fail repeatedly yet continue forward. They call it persistence. I propose direct contact. The debate intensified. Counselor Pio suggested limited interaction through staged encounters. Counselor Minna demanded containment protocols. Council Scientist Bomi suggested deploying specialized observers to infiltrate human society. After hours of discussion, Elder Teho called for a formal vote. Those in favor of establishing careful, controlled contact with humans, raise your indicator, he intoned. Slowly, 7 of the 12 council members activated the glowing symbols before them. The motion carries, Teho announced. We will prepare contact protocols. Scientist Juwu will lead the preparation team. As the council members dispersed, Juwu approached Elder Teho privately. Do you believe they are ready? She asked. Teho's silver skin rippled thoughtfully. No species is ever truly ready for first contact. But these humans, they adapt. That is their nature. And if they react with fear or aggression, Juwu pressed. Then we will witness firsthand this remarkable resilience they display, Teho replied. Either way, the galaxy changes from this moment forward. Neither of them realized just how profound that change would be, nor how the simple decision to make contact with humans would ultimately reshape the power dynamics of a 1,000-year-old galactic civilization. The gleaming halls of the Galactic Council's observation center buzzed with activity as Juwu and her team monitored dozens of screens. Each display showed different human settlements spread across 3 star systems. The humans had spread quickly in the decades since first contact, establishing mining operations, research stations, and small colonies. Begin Phase 1 testing, Elder Teho ordered, his silver skin reflecting the blue glow of the monitors. Juwu hesitated. These tests will cause real danger to the humans. Controlled danger, Teho corrected. We must understand their limits before we can truly trust them as allies. Meanwhile, Diplomat Hanbin sat across from council representatives, unaware of what was happening to his people. His dark hair was neatly combed, his suit pressed perfectly as he reviewed trade agreements. Earth looks forward to providing rare minerals in exchange for faster-than-light drive technology, Hanbin said, smiling warmly at the alien delegates. Counselor Minna clicked her mandibles. Your people adapt quickly to space travel. Humans have always been explorers, Hanbin replied. The stars just give us more to explore. At that exact moment, on mining colony Theta 9, alarms began to blare. Red lights flashed as the station's atmospheric system malfunctioned. Engineer Subin rushed to the control room, her boots echoing on metal floors. 15 other humans followed her, their faces concerned but not panicked. The station's air recyclers had mysteriously shut down, and oxygen levels were already dropping. Emergency status report, Subin ordered, her voice steady. A young technician named Dong Yun checked the readouts. Main and backup systems are offline. Environmental diagnostics show no cause. It's like they just decided to stop working. Subin studied the data, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. We have 6 hours before critical failure, she announced calmly. The team looked at each other. Subin expected fear, but instead, Dong Yun grinned. Just like that camping trip when we forgot the tent, he joked. Remember how we built a shelter from branches in that rainstorm? Several people laughed. Subin smiled despite herself. Let's break into teams, she said. Dong Yun, start salvaging parts from non-essential systems. Yunho, check supply inventory for anything we can repurpose. Jia, work on power rerouting. Hidden cameras installed by council observers captured everything. In the observation center, Juwu watched with fascination. Look at their stress hormones, she noted, pointing to biological data. Elevated, but nowhere near panic levels. Their brains are actually releasing endorphins when they joke. Elder Tejo leaned closer. This is just a minor test. Increase the challenge. On the mining station, the humans had begun dismantling equipment from the recreation area. Donghyun had removed gaming console parts for their circuitry. Others had taken apart exercise machines for their motors and power cells. Hey Subin, called Yunho as he passed. Remember when we were stuck in that subway tunnel during the flood? This is much better. At least we're dry. More laughter rippled through the group. They worked in easy coordination, passing tools and shouting suggestions. 4 hours later, they had built a crude but functional atmospheric recycler from salvaged parts. It won't last forever, Subin explained as they powered it up. But it will give us 3 days of breathable air. Enough time for help to arrive. In the observation center, Jiwoo made notes. Trial 1. Successful adaptation to life-threatening environmental failure. Solution achieved in 67% of projected minimum time. Move to Phase 2, ordered Tao. Across human space, more accidents began. On Earth's lunar base, radiation shields mysteriously failed. On the research vessel Horizon, navigation systems malfunctioned, stranding them near a black hole's event horizon. At each location, humans responded with remarkable adaptability. But the most shocking test came on the frontier outpost Omega-4. The Council released a carefully controlled specimen of a creature from the darkest reaches of the galaxy, a being whose mere presence had driven 3 sentient species to extinction through pure terror. The shadow entity manifested in the outpost's main courtyard. Its form constantly shifted between horrific shapes, and its presence projected fear directly into nearby minds. The Council observers expected mass panic, possibly suicides. Instead, the humans gathered to study it. I'm naming it Bob, announced a researcher named Yunji, taking readings with a handheld scanner. Bob, questioned her colleague. It looks like my Uncle Bob after holiday dinners, she replied with a shrug. Within days, the humans had constructed specialized containment fields. They studied the entity's effects and developed rotating shifts to prevent prolonged exposure. Most shocking to the Council observers, the outpost's gift shop soon sold plush toy versions of Bob, with children clutching the stuffed horrors while sleeping soundly. When the final test results reached the full Council, silence fell over the chamber. They processed terror through humor. Jiwoo reported to the stunned Council. It's unprecedented. When faced with cosmic horrors that drove the Zentari species to mass suicide, humans made jokes, studied the threats, and found solutions. Councillor Mena's mandibles clicked anxiously. This confirms they are dangerous. No species should be this resistant to terror. Or this valuable as allies, Tahoe countered. Imagine facing the void clusters with humans at our side. At the diplomatic reception that evening, Hanbin approached Jiwoo, his expression friendly but his eyes sharp. An interesting few weeks, he said casually. So many unusual accidents happening to human settlements, almost as if someone were testing us. Jiwoo's blue skin darkened slightly. Accidents happen in space. Hanbin sipped his drink. Indeed, though I find it curious that each accident was resolved just before our emergency response teams arrived, almost as if someone knew exactly how much danger to apply. His smile remained, but his eyes held knowing. If someone were testing us, I might suggest they simply ask next time. Humans enjoy challenges. We just prefer knowing we're taking the test. Jiwoo looked at him with new respect. The humans hadn't just passed the tests, they had recognized them for what they were. The testing phase was officially over. The real diplomacy was just beginning. The emergency alarm echoed through the vast halls of the Galactic Council's central station. Delegates from all 12 founding species hurried toward the Great Chamber, their diverse forms creating a strange procession through the gleaming corridors. Elder Tejo waited at the chamber entrance, his silver skin pulsing with nervous energy. Beside him stood Jiwoo, clutching a data tablet. Are all the reports verified? Tahoe asked quietly. Juwu nodded. Triple-checked. The humans' responses were consistent across all test scenarios. Inside the Great Chamber, the council members took their places. Some floated in anti-gravity fields. Others sat in specialized chairs that accommodated their unique physiologies. The chamber hummed with tense conversation until Elder Teho stepped to the central platform. "This emergency session is now open," he announced, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. "We gather to discuss the human question." The main display activated, showing various scenes from the tests conducted on human settlements over the past 3 months. The mining station's oxygen failure, the lunar base radiation leak, the shadow entity Bob, all played out before the council. "The evidence is clear," Elder Tahoe said, switching to display human neural scans alongside those of other species. Humans process fear differently. Their amygdala and prefrontal cortex show unique interaction patterns during stress. Their adaptability isn't technological, it's biological. The scans rotated slowly for all to see. Where other species showed overwhelming amygdala activity during terror events, human brains displayed complex patterns involving multiple regions. In simple terms, Juwu explained, stepping forward, when faced with terror, most species' thinking centers shut down as survival instincts take over. Humans maintain cognitive function. They can analyze, plan, and even joke while afraid. Counselor Dury's gaseous form swirled faster within his containment field. How is this possible? Fear is an essential survival mechanism. They still feel fear, Juwu clarified. They simply don't become paralyzed by it. They acknowledge it, then problem-solve around it. Murmurs filled the chamber as delegates consulted with their advisors. Counselor Minna rose from her seat, her segmented exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber lights. "I propose containment," she stated firmly. Such psychological resilience makes them unpredictable. They expand faster than any species we've encountered, adapting to environments that should be hostile. Their ships now travel to stars we once thought too distant for them. Their colonies grow daily. Her mandibles clicked with agitation. If they continue unchecked, within a century they could dominate the galactic rim. Within 3, they might challenge the Council itself. Several delegates signaled agreement, their indicators glowing red on the central display. Juwu stepped forward, her blue skin flushed darker with emotion. Counselor Minna sees only threat where opportunity exists. Yes, humans adapt quickly. Yes, their minds process fear differently. But these traits make them valuable, not dangerous. She gestured to a new set of images. Humans working alongside council species on joint projects, sharing technology, exchanging cultural knowledge. Species that can face the unknown without breaking are rare, she continued. In our long history, only 17 species have developed space travel. Of those, 5 destroyed themselves through fear-driven conflicts when they discovered they weren't alone. 3 more collapsed when facing cosmic realities beyond their understanding. Humans name their fears, Juwu said, displaying the plush toys of Bob that human children now carried. They study what terrifies them. They joke about it. This isn't a threat. It's perhaps the most valuable evolutionary trait we've encountered. The debate raged for hours. Some counselors proposed limited containment, allowing humans their current territories, but preventing further expansion. Others suggested making humans protected allies, utilizing their unique abilities while keeping them from full council membership. Elder Teho finally called for order after the 6th hour of debate. "We must reach consensus," he insisted. "The humans grow more aware of our testing with each passing day." After a final round of arguments, the council voted. The results appeared on the central display. 7 for alliance, 5 for containment. Elder Tahoe's skin rippled with relief. Then it is decided. The official declaration will read, "Humans are unfazed by terrors that would break other minds. It is in their nature." The Council recognizes them as a Class A resilient species worthy of provisional alliance status. As the session began to close, the chamber doors slid open unexpectedly. Diplomat Handon walked in, dressed in formal Earth diplomatic attire. His face was calm, but his eyes held determination. The chamber fell silent. No non-council species had ever entered during an active session. "Honored counselors," Hanbin said, his voice steady, "forgive my interruption, but this matter concerns Earth directly." Elder Tejo stepped forward. "Diplomat Hanbin, this is unprecedented." "As were your tests on our colonies," Hanbin replied evenly. He held up a small data crystal. "This contains complete records of 17 manufactured accidents across human settlements. Shadow creatures released on our outposts. Navigation systems sabotaged near black holes. Children endangered by radiation leaks." The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Councillor Muna's mandibles clicked rapidly in agitation. "You tested us without consent," Hanbin continued, his voice remaining calm despite the gravity of his accusations. "You endangered our people to satisfy your curiosity." He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with several council members. "Yet we remain willing to talk. Perhaps that's the most human quality of all. Not our response to fear, but our willingness to forgive it in others." Elder Tahoe's silver skin pulsed with embarrassment. "How did you obtain these records?" Hanbin smiled slightly. "Your security is excellent, but humans are adaptable." "You're not angry?" Ju asked, stepping closer. "We're furious," Hanbin corrected, "but we understand fear. You feared what you didn't understand about us. We've done the same throughout our history." He placed the data crystal on the central platform. "We want full alliance status, not provisional. And we want seats on all committees studying newly discovered species. No more tests without consent." The council members looked at each other in silence. Finally, Elder Tejo spoke. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we have more to learn from humans than we realized." The council's formal declaration was revised that day. Humans weren't just resilient. They were now partners. And the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency alert system activated across all Galactic Council worlds simultaneously. The message was simple but terrifying. "Unknown entity approaching from galactic core. Extreme caution advised." Within hours, reports began flooding in from the inner systems. 3 trading vessels had gone silent after sending disturbing final transmissions about seeing the unthinkable. A research station orbiting close to the galactic center had broadcast only screams before communication ceased. On the Council's central world, Elder Tejo called an emergency gathering of all available delegates. Many seats remained empty. The representatives of the Malorian, Quantix, and Vish species were all reported to be in medical stasis, their minds shut down after exposure to whatever was approaching. The council chamber was tense as sensor data appeared on the main display. Something vast was moving outward from the galactic center, not a ship or fleet, but a pattern in space itself. It bent light, warped gravity, and somehow affected the minds of those who perceived it. "It defies classification," reported Science Elder Quan, his crystalline form dulled with stress. "It appears to exist partially in dimensions we cannot access. Our instruments register it as both there and not there simultaneously." Elder Tejo turned to face the human delegation, which had arrived minutes earlier. Diplomat Hanbin sat beside Commander Gi, who headed Earth's newly formed Space Defense Force. Both humans looked concerned but calm. 3 entire species have fallen into catatonic states, Tahoe said, his silver skin barely pulsing. "Our minds cannot process its existence. Even looking at the sensor data is causing psychological strain among our people." Hanbin leaned forward, studying the readings. "Have you attempted communication?" Councillor Muna's mandibles clicked with agitation. "Communication? It's not a visitor. It's a phenomenon, a cosmic horror that breaks minds." "Maybe," Commander Jihai said thoughtfully. "Or maybe it's just very different from anything we've encountered." She turned to Hanbin, and a silent understanding passed between them. Hanbin nodded. "We volunteer to make contact," he announced to the council. The chamber erupted in shocked protests. Councillor Mina rose to her full height. You don't understand, she insisted. Exposure causes immediate psychological breakdown. Our strongest telepaths attempted contact and are now brain dead. Our most experienced space explorers tried to study it and are now in medical stasis, trapped in nightmares. Commander G stood, her military uniform crisp despite the long journey to the Council world. She was shorter than many in the room, but somehow commanded attention through her steady presence. We understand risk, she replied simply. We also understand that someone must try. If this entity continues its current path, it will reach populated systems within weeks. Elder Tahoe's skin rippled with concern. You would risk your sanity. Humans have been facing the incomprehensible throughout our history, Hanbin explained. From natural disasters to war to the vastness of space itself, we've developed mental techniques to process the unprocessable. After hours of debate, the Council reluctantly agreed to a joint expedition. The Council would provide their most advanced ship, the Stellar Horizon, while humans would lead the mission. 6 Council species volunteered crew members, though many with visible reluctance. Engineer Subin, who had gained respect during the mining colony incident, was selected to head the technical team. She had developed specialized equipment that might help shield minds from the entity's influence. As the Stellar Horizon prepared for departure, Subin inspected her newly designed neural buffers, headsets that would filter perceptions and protect the wearer's mind. These might help, she explained to the mixed crew, but they're experimental. Our best protection will be our protocols. She outlined the plan: rotating shifts to limit exposure, paired support systems where each crew member would have a partner watching for signs of psychological distress, and mental techniques humans had developed for processing fear. And humor, added Dongyun, who had joined as communications specialist. Never underestimate the power of a bad joke in a terrifying situation. Several alien crew members looked confused at this, but the humans all nodded in understanding. 3 days later, the Stellar Horizon approached the edge of the entity's influence. The sensor readings became increasingly strange. Space itself seemed to fold and unfold around them in patterns that hurt the eyes to watch. First perceptual anomalies reported in Section 3, announced the ship's eye. 2 Quantix crew members showing signs of neural distress. Subin immediately implemented the rotation protocol, moving the affected crew to shielded areas. Human crew members took their places. As they ventured deeper, more alien crew showed signs of psychological breakdown. Despite the neural buffers, the entity's presence was simply too alien for many minds to process. The ship's medical bay filled with sedated crew members trapped in states of catatonic terror. In the observation deck, a Malorian scientist named Pax began trembling uncontrollably as they studied the entity through specialized filters. "It's impossible," Pax whispered, his luminous skin flickering erratically. "It exists in geometries that cannot. I cannot." His voice trailed off as his eyes widened in horror. Subin, who had been monitoring him, quickly moved to his side. "Focus on my voice," she said calmly. "What you're seeing is real, but your fear of it is just information." Pax turned to her, trembling. "How can you look at it without breaking?" "Fear is just information," Subin told her alien colleague. "Acknowledge it, use it, but don't let it use you. Tell me what you see, but describe it in simple terms." "Patterns. Shifting. Too many dimensions," Pax struggled. "Good. Now give it a name," Subin suggested. "A name?" Pax seemed confused. "Sure. We named the shadow entity Bob. What does this one look like to you?" After a moment's hesitation, Pax replied, "Like the swirls in my morning beverage." "Then let's call it coffee," Subin said with a smile. "See, less terrifying already." Somehow, this simple act of naming seemed to help. Pax's trembling subsided slightly. Throughout the ship, human crew members worked with their alien counterparts, teaching them techniques for processing the unprocessable. Some aliens responded better than others, but the human methods helped many function despite the mind-bending presence surrounding them. As they reached the calculated center of the phenomenon, Commander G gathered the remaining functional crew. "We're going to attempt communication," she announced. "Not with our technology, but with our minds. The entity seems to affect consciousness directly. Perhaps that's also how we can reach it." The fate of billions across the galaxy now rested on humanity's strange ability to face the unfaceable and somehow remain unfazed. Commander Gi stood at the viewport of the stellar horizon, watching the swirling patterns of the void entity. The ship had been within the entity's influence zone for 3 days. Half the alien crew remained in medical stasis, their minds unable to process what they were experiencing. But the humans had persisted, and now they were ready for the final attempt. "Are you sure about this?" asked Engineer Subin, adjusting the neural interface helmet on Ji's head. "No," Ji admitted with a small smile. "But we've run out of other options." The plan was dangerous but simple. Using modified versions of the neural buffers, Ji would attempt direct mental contact with the entity. The buffers would translate her thoughts into patterns that might be recognized by the vast consciousness surrounding them. Diplomat Hanbin stood nearby, ready to take over if Ji became incapacitated. The remaining functional crew, mostly humans with a few aliens who had adapted using human techniques, monitored the equipment. "Beginning contact attempt," Ji announced, closing her eyes. The ship fell silent except for the soft beeping of monitoring equipment. Minutes passed. Ji's face showed strain, then confusion, and finally, unexpectedly, she smiled. "It's not hostile," she whispered, eyes still closed. "It's curious." For the next hour, Ji remained in contact with the entity. The crew watched in amazement as the swirling patterns around the ship changed, becoming somehow less disturbing to look at. When Ji finally removed the neural interface, her eyes were bright with wonder. "It didn't know," she explained to the waiting crew. "It's an ancient consciousness that normally exists between galaxies. It entered our galaxy to study us, not realizing its perceptual patterns could harm our minds." Donghyun looked skeptical. "So a super-powerful space entity accidentally drove 3 species insane because it didn't know its own strength?" "Essentially," Ji nodded. "It's like a child with a magnifying glass who doesn't realize they're burning ants. Once I helped it understand, it modified its appearance." She turned to the viewport. The entity now appeared as a beautiful, softly glowing pattern, still strange, but no longer madness-inducing. "It wants to learn from us," Ji said, "and it has knowledge from thousands of galaxies it's willing to share." The journey back to Council space took 2 weeks. As they traveled, the affected crew members gradually recovered. The entity followed at a distance, maintaining its new, less harmful form. When the stellar horizon finally docked at the Council's central station, they were met by a reception unlike any in Council history. Representatives from all 12 founding species waited in the arrival bay, along with leaders from 20 associate worlds. Elder Teho stepped forward as Ji, Hanbin, and Subin exited the ship. His silver skin glowed with rare emotional display. "You have achieved what we thought impossible," he said formally. "The entity has already shared its new understanding with our telepathic species. Those who fell catatonic are recovering." The council hall was filled beyond capacity for the official recognition ceremony. Elder Teho stood at the center platform, the full council arranged behind him. In recognition of humanity's contribution, Elder Teho announced, his voice carrying throughout the vast chamber, "We establish a new classification, psychologically resilient species. Humanity is the first to hold this designation." Applause and various species-specific sounds of approval filled the hall. Hanbin, representing Earth, accepted the formal declaration with dignity. "Humans do not claim to be fearless," he said to the assembly. "We simply process fear differently. We believe this ability can be taught and shared." In the months that followed, humans began working with various council species, teaching their techniques for facing the terrifying. Some species adapted quickly, others struggled. But all recognized that in a universe full of unknowns, Psychological resilience was perhaps the most valuable trait a species could possess. The void entity remained near the galactic edge, communicating regularly through specially trained human intermediaries. It shared knowledge of cosmic phenomena that advanced council science by centuries. In return, it learned about the diversity of life and consciousness within the galaxy. One evening, 6 months after the crisis, Zhu visited the Earth Embassy on the Council's central world. The embassy had established a cultural center where aliens could experience human traditions. Tonight featured a ritual Zhu had heard about but never witnessed, movie night. She sat somewhat awkwardly in a chair designed for human comfort as the lights dimmed. Hanbin sat beside her, offering a bowl of popped corn kernels. "This is a classic Earth horror film from the early 21st century," he explained as the screen flickered to life, followed by something we call a comedy. Zhu watched in fascination as the humans around her reacted to the horror film. They jumped at scary moments, then laughed at their own reactions. They called out advice to characters making poor decisions. They discussed how they would handle the situation better. When the comedy began playing afterward, the room filled with laughter. Zhu tried to understand the humor, but found much of it confusing. "I don't understand how laughter helps," Zhu confessed to Hanbin as the credits rolled. The horror film showed terrible dangers. Why follow it with something so trivial? Hanbin smiled thoughtfully. "It reminds us that fear is temporary," he explained. "The universe is terrifying, but that doesn't mean we can't enjoy the ride." Laughter after fear puts everything in perspective. Zhu considered this. "Your species is strange, Diplomat Hanbin." "We know," he replied with a grin. The next morning, the Galactic Council convened to vote on a new amendment to galactic law. With the human delegation present, they passed it unanimously. Psychological resilience would henceforth be recognized not as a threat, but as perhaps the greatest evolutionary advantage in an uncaring cosmos. As the void entity continued its peaceful study at the galaxy's edge, as council species learned human coping techniques, as Earth opened its first training academy for interspecies psychological exchange, humans continued doing what they had always done, facing the impossible with a shrug and asking, "What's next?" Throughout the galaxy, a new phrase entered common usage across multiple species and languages. When faced with daunting challenges or cosmic terrors, people would simply say, "Be human about it." There could be no higher compliment. The end.